You got the audio, Phil?
I mean, I'm just taking it from the video. It's
You're
all
not
in one
recording
package.
in Logic?
No. I just take the separate files that Zoom gives me.
That's good enough. You don't need to record it to Logic.
No.
Cool.
Since you're not here now, then yeah. No, I just use Zoom and figure it out.
Use Zoom.
Yeah. I just use Zoom, figure it out.
Nick, did you see remember the pandemic special where Cartman like holds up that little like cutout of his face for the Zoom class? Like pretends that his like Wi-Fi connection is shitty.
Yeah, he's like, no. What he says is he's like, oh, I'm gonna have to audio only mode or something. Or he's gonna have to. Yeah.
Can you imagine the shit we would have gotten into like if we had to do online classes?
The exact same stuff.
I mean, you could just swap out for half of your siblings if you didn't feel like going to class. Pay Josh $20 to sit in for you.
No, Catherine would just have all devices on her desk.
Just take notes for me, and like I'll. Well, cool. Welcome to Frame This Podcast. My name's Nate. I'm here with my co-host and audio engineer, Philippe.
Hey, everybody.
We're trying this new thing with the logos. I hope it works out.
Tell us if I look like shit.
I would never tell you that
podcast
to your face.
DM us.
Yeah, DM us on Instagram. Subscribe, like, and follow. All the good stuff. We're here with an old friend of mine, Nick Guy. He is a chimney sweep and mason, and the owner of the Chimney Guys, pun intended. Nick, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your world as a bricklayer and chimney sweep?
Hey, yeah, I'm Nick. Thanks for having me on. And so I'm a chimney sweep and a contractor, and so I can do a whole pile of different stuff. But my specialty is chimney work, and just like most every other chimney professional that's actually a professional that actually has certifications and training and isn't just a guy with a pickup truck that throws a brush and rods down a chimney. They also the same thing, like being this industry was a total accident to get involved and to do stuff here. And it's funny how everyone just falls into this and then they just roll with it. I used to work for my dad's company for about 10 years, give or take. And he bought his company when I was still living at home. I can still remember being a teenager. And when he got started, him opening the door at like 6 a.m. and being like, hey, you want to work today? And then that was the beginning of it. And
he gave you a choice? My dad would have just like pulled me out of bed.
Yeah, polite. Well, I got a lot of brothers, so he would just go down the line. He knew he was one of us was going to want to make money. And I wound up.
Thankfully, Junior didn't want to make any money.
Yeah. Well, no, he worked with Alan at the time. But which Alan is an incredible mason that my family has known for a long, long time, that I've done a little bit of work with, and my brother has as well. So we've been around just trades and construction and all kinds of stuff for years. My parents actually built their own house, and when I was about 11 years old, and we helped a lot. And so I got to watch and see how all this stuff goes together and what's involved and how it's done and how many mistakes are made and
which steps to not use if you're sneaking back into the house.
Oh yeah. Or what's accessible, what's not accessible. Oh yeah. You know everything about a house when you help build it. It's great. But yeah, I actually wound up leaving my dad's company and doing some other stuff. And they called me about a year or so later, and they're like, hey, we're desperate. We'll pay you a real wage this time. We'll pay you for real.
God damn.
I was like, all right.
A good working wage, oh boy.
Yeah, when people say like the boss's son, when it's a Fortune 500 company, it's a good thing. When it's a really small family company, that means slave labor. All right, that's what that's what that means. Even if you're, no matter what, even if you're an adult living on your own, it means that there's going to be family expectation. That you're going to do whatever it takes because it's family. It's an interesting environment. And so then I was back to that, and my dad didn't want to learn how to do stuff. He just loves to work. He loves to grind. But in the world of chimneys, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of codes. You're dealing with fluid dynamics in the home, different air pressure at different levels of the house, systems, masonry, metal, sometimes electrical, gas, and all kinds of stuff. And so for years, I went to all the trainings. And there was one year where I spent a month in classes all over the US, just learning about everything. And then I would come home and I would have to teach everyone else at the company how to not screw things up anymore and what we were doing wrong and how to not get sued and all the fun stuff like that. So it's a lot. And I think it's the same for any industry. If they're doing general contracting and handling a lot of things, I think that's why it's a lot easier to find someone that has one specialty and then do that one thing. Because once you start messing with multiple things, it's like going to a college and the math professor is also the history professor and also the philosophy professor. And it's almost like that, but that's what is expected of you.
It's like Coach Steven Big Mouth. He's the coach and he's also the also the chaperone and also the
DJ.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exact same thing. And what I wound up doing was they always sent me over to the Charlottesville area where I live now because they had big fancy houses with big problems that nobody knew how to fix. So like, all right, Nick, you're going to drive an hour and 20 minutes each way most days and have fun. So I just moved over here. And then I got the complexity of it got a little intense. So I told them that I was going to have to do something else. So they said that they'd rather just sell me everybody over here. And because they didn't want to deal with over here anyway. So I wound up with a company, even though I never wanted a chimney company. But you got to pay the mortgage.
There you go. Just the random question came into my head. When did chimneys become more complex than just or cleaning or servicing or besides like getting the wood soot out?
So
I feel like there's going to be a lot of this motion in this podcast.
No, yeah, now we use rotary systems. So now it's, thank goodness.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
Yeah, it's so much better. Like I'd have customers. Oh yeah, you don't do the, and they would just you don't do the rods, and they'd just start doing that. I have to look at them with a straight face. Like
no, we don't.
Oh, no.
We don't do that anymore.
No, we don't. So a little history of chimneys in the United States and what kind of put us in the situation that we're in right now. So obviously US, all these Europeans, which have had chimneys for hundreds of years, if not over 1,000 years of just doing their thing there. And then all these people from all the countries in Europe coming over to America and building them here. And that's how it went until right around the 1920s. And that's when basically HVAC started to come in, specifically also like coal furnaces in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wanted a chimney or regular chimney or fireplace.
You're talking like a central heating system based off of coal rather than like a living room fireplace that you also use to like cook food and stuff.
Yep.
Gotcha.
The first thing they were sending like air ducts or blowers or just the modern way and shoveling coal, which was a whole lot easier because you could just get a pile of coal dumped into your basement and then you just throw it in the furnace every so many hours and you were warm all winter. So nobody did that. And then everyone that knew what they were doing retired. And then years and years later, people remembered, remember when you were a kid? Remember having a fireplace?
Mm-hmm.
Like, fireplaces were great. Why don't we have those anymore? And so as people were old, they wanted that feeling again of like when they were kids, remember seeing those. And then people that had no idea what they were doing, no clue, started building these things. And pretty much ever since, the U.S. has been known for pretty bad work.
So you're talking about explosions.
That happens. Sometimes people try to use liquor to clean chimneys. One guy used gasoline, but he didn't know that the vapor traveling up the chimney explodes because liquid gas burns, but the vapor explodes. And so they found parts of his chimney like quarter mile away.
God damn.
Yeah. Or people that they let their chimney get soaking wet. They don't take care of it and it gets super wet. And then it's like a really cold weather and they panic and they put a giant fire in. So there's been a couple steam explosions in chimneys where the wall of the chimney explodes into the living room, sending bricks and stuff at shrapnel everywhere. Oh yeah, there's a lot of wild stuff that.
Didn't realize chimneys were so interesting.
Yeah,
this is going to be a fun ride.
What is the first thing traditionally, like when you tell someone that you're a chimney sweep? What are some like typical reactions that you get?
Can you sing and dance on the roof? Mary Poppins references. People still do that. Also, my area, can you sweep my chimney? Can you look at my chimney? Do you do this? Do you do that? What about this? So half the time it's like, oh, that's crazy. The other half is, I need to talk to you right now. I have questions. Yeah, that's pretty much the split. But what happened is when all these other people started building fireplaces, they wouldn't work. And then they're also burning the houses down. Because it turns out a brick is not enough to keep your house from burning down because heat goes right through it. So right around the 1920s is when the clay liners, the orange clay, came in. And they're still very, very prevalent today. And so that had that little upbeat where they started using all that. But then during the oil crisis, the cost of electricity and everything went through the roof. And so everyone had those fireplaces that were built. And so they threw wood stoves into them. And you can't just throw a wood stove into a fireplace. And so they would fill with all the unburned fuel potential turns into the black buildup inside of a chimney, which is
what is the difference for people? I have a little bit, I used to work with him, so like I have a little bit of background, but like what is the difference between like a fireplace and a wood stove? Could you define like why they're different and why those are like, a different burning process than like just loading your fireplace up with wood?
Trying to avoid this level of complexity. Well, basically, a fireplace it's a very large.
This podcast is basically just to scare people away from being chimney sweeps. So, like, the more details you can give, the better. Normally, we try to like educate people, and it's like for a young person wanting to be a chimney sweep,
people just
this is how you do it. this is run away.
Like, listen to this, and like, is our fireplace going to kill us? So yeah, a fireplace. Usually it's brick. Sometimes it's metal, and large opening, couple logs in there, and then it shrinks as it goes up. And the principle there is basically it's a lot of air moving, so you can have a lot of wood. It looks great, but there's a lot of movement happening, and they're not efficient because all the warm air in your house just goes outside. Versus a wood stove, which has a minimal amount of air, and a fireplace usually has the inside of a chimney is called a flue, And so they have a protective liner to protect the flue. So inside the flue, the liner for a chimney or fireplace is usually, I mean, they could be anywhere from this big to this big. A wood stove, a lot of the time, that big.
Right.
So it's small. It's highly efficient, small amount of air, maximum potential of what the heat can do. The EPA highly regulates the industry, and they just went from like high efficiency to high efficiency, low emissions, ultra low emissions. So they've got, I saw this one brand that I work with, they were advertising a stove that the emissions is pretty darn close to the same as the tree rotting in the woods. So it's basically the same because they're using what they call like a triple burn technology, where they burn the wood and then they burn the smoke twice. And they have a process for filtering out the hydrocarbons.
And people buy these?
Oh, yeah, all the time. But actually, it's funny because people are trying, some people are trying to ban wood use, which is very interesting. So there's units that run at 75, 85% efficiency. You use wood that's already dying in your area. It's a natural renewing resource that naturally dies. And you add nothing else. You're using something that has basically almost no technology to it, that's built and is able to be built out of simple materials, usually in the States. And so the same thing, super low emissions for that too. But they don't know is that they want to ban the wood burning, but they don't know that their electricity comes from coal, which is like maybe 35, 40% efficiency at the power plant.
By efficiency, you mean how much of the fuel source it uses?
Exactly. So it's a very inefficient, and they're able to make up for the emissions by these insane, highly complex exhaust systems at the power plants. But it's hilarious. They're like, oh, we won't use this natural source. We'll promote more strip mining in West Virginia, because they just don't know. They just know that electricity is good, but there's no
electricity is good.
Yes, electricity is good for the environment. Burning stuff is bad for the environment. It's like, but that's how you get your electricity right now until we figure out fusion.
Fusion.
But yeah, hopefully, yeah, that makes sense. That's the difference between the two. And I guess I'd like to dive out of the nitty-gritty details because you probably lost half the audience at this point.
We'll see our clickaways spike at like, the 20-minute mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit, before we hit record, and you talked a little bit about it so far, as far as like learning more about the business and taking on a more like intellectual side of the manual labor world. What is your learning feedback loop like? How do you where do you find new information about Chimneys, and how do you use that to grow your business, like from a marketing standpoint or from like an intellectual standpoint, as opposed to just working harder?
Yeah. So I've had a very interesting perspective of seeing my dad's company with the idea of working harder, and then also being able to talk to some guys that have been in this industry, but also just general construction and blue collar jobs as a whole. And basically what I picked up on is that you can grind really, really hard your whole life and not make a dime, and break yourself and not have relationships. Or you can learn a lot constantly and work hard, but know exactly how to work the smartest way. And life can actually be pretty good for you and for the people that you care about and everything else. So when did that click for you? And what was your like first steps process to like applying a work smarter mindset? So that was probably after I got certified, and I started taking courses. That's one. and I started talking to other people. Because then all of a sudden you're like, wait, you have like, oh, you use this tip and trick for this, or you address this problem this way, or, oh, you have a problem with this? That's easy. Like, what do you mean that's easy? This is impossible. And there's so much to learn, and there's so many ways to do things really well and more effectively and more efficiently. And if you don't know, you don't know. And so that's where it started. And what was funny is I thought like, oh, I was like here, and I thought I was here as far as knowing stuff. And now I realize it never ends. It's like a river, and there's guys that I could never catch up with the amount they know, but that's okay because I have their email and I can just bother them when need be. But yeah, continued education is huge, and probably for every industry or most jobs, especially this day and age.
So what would you say the ratio of Chimney specific information to just strictly like business information do you ingest? Is it like applying like business principles to your specific field? I'm sure there's like codes and stuff you have to keep up with as far as, the Chimney stuff goes.
Yeah. So for years, it was all, the most of the years, it was all the details, the technical stuff, the code stuff, all of that. But now the last 2 years, the mass majority of everything I'm learning is how to run a company and how to work with people. And, how do you get insurance? How do you make sure you're properly covered while also getting a good deal? And how to set yourself up for what's your growth potential, and when's too much growth, when's too little growth, when's too many trucks, how to make sure that you don't have a crazy Dutch structure. There's just so many different aspects of business. And that's kind of a crazy thing that I think part of the blue collar world struggles, because it's not what happens is you're really good at doing something. And then so you go to do it, and then you have 6,000 other things that you have to do outside of what you want to do, which is paying attention to all the details, answering all the emails, having a way for everything to cash flow, the insurance side, the taxes, government requirements, OSHA. It's just a million different things, and people go crazy. And most businesses they don't make it because there's death by 1,000 cuts.
What do you think the disconnect is between the common blue collar worker and the brainy side of it? Like why do you see so many like 60-year-old nearly retirees limping and sore and just tired of all of it when there could have been an easier way to do it? Like what do you think the mindset shift?
What they did was the easy way. For them, it's easier to basically spend their lives grinding themselves to death and not have good family relationships, probably wind up divorced, not know their kids well, not have any money, because they can just work hard every day, and if life crumbles around them and their life crumbles around them, it's not their fault. They work hard, because thinking is really hard. And for a lot of individuals, it's easier just to put a lot of muscular effort in every day than to think about, what am I doing? Like you said, a lot of guys in their 60s, they're injured, they're hobbling, they're hurting. I was the only guy for my dad's company that didn't have some sort of injury at some point. And I was also, a majority of the time, the only guy that ever did maintenance or went to a gym or stretched or went to a chiropractor. And they always had me do the crazy stuff. It wasn't like they were always doing the crazy stuff. They were like, oh, no, we can't do this, get Nick. And it was because I wasn't going to injure myself because of the maintenance. It's really the little things and a lot of aspects of life that make you or break you. And that's an example. And like you're talking about older people, it's the same thing. People don't want to think about or deal with the little things. Life is very complicated and has a lot of aspects and a lot of details to organize. And if you're a really simple person that would have been better off being born like 200 years ago, it's rough. It's really rough.
It seems
Phil,
like
you look
there's
like
a distinction, though, within the blue collar workforce, that there's a skilled side and then an unskilled side. Is my synthesis correct, or
Yeah,
am I not? That's what it sounds like you were explaining. Is there people that want to develop their skills at a blue collar job, which they're blue collar billionaires. There are people that own, huge plumbing companies and electrical companies, and it's just as much skilled work as I guess how would you say? I'm trying to think of like a equivalent white collar job. You just put into like as much effort and time in.
It kind of becomes white collar.
Okay.
Because like you were saying, like, no, there's guys that they built their company up to like 3,000 trucks.
Yeah.
And they run an entire state-wide company that's worth millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they're huge. And guess what? They have giant homes. They can do whatever they want in the world, and they can go in the office, and it's basically building themselves into building their own white collar position out of nothing.
So yeah, I just don't understand the whole concept blue collar, white collar. Because I mean, I'm just a technician. I have a college degree, but I feel like I'm just one of the guys that puts on a uniform and does the physical stuff. I'm on my hands and knees. Yep. I'm connecting cables. I'm doing all that stuff. And that's what I feel like. I really don't feel like I have a white collar job.
Yeah. Well, you don't wear a suit at work, right?
No.
Okay. I mean, that's the idea of white collar, is that you wear a suit, and ideally your job is something that is all office work. And usually that tends to having a lot of responsibility, a lot of money on the line, or a lot of details, or, you got to make sure something that involves 1,000 people goes correctly. It's more stuff like that. It's a whole different world. And I think part of the big split is that even though they're equally hard, one is more mentally hard and one's more physically hard, but the payout, what you get paid, is usually night and day difference.
Mm.
Let's dive into the psychology of that a little bit. Why do you think, I'm going to put on my Joe Rogan cap for a minute. Why do you think people gravitate more towards the physical exertion? Because like I am super adverse to physical pain. Like I went back to the gym for the first time Thanksgiving, and my legs are on fire right now. So like you could work all your life physically hard, and your body shows for it. But why do people like shy away from the mental exertion?
Like I said, the mental exertion is so hard because you actually have to think. You actually have to think about why you're doing what you're doing, and if you're making the right decisions or if you're making the wrong decisions, or learning. Okay, do I need to learn things? You have to start assessing yourself every day, or your decisions, and so when you're in a job that's all mental, there's like a constant thing, a constant machine that's running, and it's easier. I'm like, there's a reason that there's so many guys that are workaholics, because you can hide in your work, because it's like a respectable thing to kill yourself by working hard. because you can feel good about it while still hiding from all the things that you need to deal with. And I've seen a lot of guys do that. I've had employees that were like that, and they'd rather work than face a problem in life. And part of the issue is the fact that as far as getting educated for transitioning from working only physically hard to also utilizing your mind to maximize your physical work. Because in most situations, your best case scenario is knowing how to do both the best way. Because being all full-time office can be really far away. And also your mindset is so night and day from that. And there's nothing in education that prepares you for that. It's very rare that you can even talk to people that can help you for that. Usually you got to get lucky enough to run into the right people, or you got to start reading through a lot of books.
Have you ever, how do you apply that mindset to your day job, to the manual labor? Like, what are some examples of times where you've worked both smarter and harder to achieve your, get your project done?
Yeah. So here's one. For years, working when I would do service work at my dad's company, I would literally bring in, it would take a bunch of trips to bring everything into the house to work. With a bag of this, a bucket of this, a handful of this, grab this. And when I started my own business, I was like, I'm wasting a lot of time doing this. This is dumb. And I got a toolbox pack out kit on wheels. And so I could just grab everything and walk inside.
Boom.
And just do it in one trip, instead of being in and out 14 times because I'm always forgetting something.
What is that? Is that like a 5-gallon bucket on wheels?
What? No, it's a toolbox on wheels that can stack another toolbox on top. You can stack 3 high. DeWalt,
like one of those Milwaukee, almost like carry-on luggage.
Yeah.
Cool. I love those things.
I know, right? I have the.
How's that not at the top of your to-do list?
Right. Because I was employee, and they were always saying, "Don't use the company card because there's no money in it." That was one of the examples. Another thing, I immediately jumped on utilizing a software for customers and jobs and problems and inspections and repairs. And so I started using apps like crazy, so everything could be here, but I could also jump it to anyone else that needed it, which made it 10,000 times easier because I forgot something.
The whole blue collar adversity to technology blows my mind. It is so infuriating.
Yeah. What's interesting? So in the 2000s, it was a big mental struggle, I think, in blue collar, where not really trusting the internet, a lot of blue collar not wanting to even do credit card swiping. But now, just the last few years, it's been huge. I don't know if you noticed, but the amount of you probably don't notice, but the amount of CRMs is exploding. So the basically customer relations management systems that handles all your budgeting and your people and your jobs and your stuff, they're literally coming out of the woodwork like crazy. Because now when someone posts on professional forums that I'm on, it used to be 2 or 3, I use this one, and now it's just huge.
And they all have their specific thing they do better than other companies.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very it's kind of wild nowadays that technology and is starting to marry up with how to actually do the working on ground level working parts of jobs separate from Fortune 500 companies. And it's really cool, but also there's actually access to leadership training. Like the most, there's two books that I hear really often in blue collar to read. And Nate, I know
Bible?
No. Usually it's beer, but
probably How to Win Friends and Influence People.
There's a leadership book, and then there's a how-to book. So the leadership book is Extreme Ownership.
Yep.
It's all every time people are like, oh yeah, what happened? The guys read some leadership books. Everyone's just like, have them read Extreme Ownership every time. And then the book is the E-Myth, which is the entrepreneur myth.
I haven't read that book in a very long time.
Yeah, and it's amazing because even if you have no interest in running a business, you read it and then you understand like the components of a business and also why it can be so frustrating. And it's incredibly well written. And he talks about people just losing their minds because they are the be all end all, and they're having to literally work day and night and day because they're it. And they can try to tell other people to do stuff, but they mess it up. They don't listen. They don't do their job. They don't show up on time. They leave before they're supposed to, all that stuff. And so that's a amazing book, and it's been around for a while, but unfortunately, most people don't like to read. I should have read it years ago. I read it last year. Actually, I started reading it a little bit after I had some 100-hour weeks. And I was like, this is not working. This is bad. I'm going to kill myself trying
That's like Elon Musk developing Tesla weeks.
Yeah. Literally every moment, every ounce of focus until fall asleep. And then the moment we'll wake up, it's, okay, I'm already short on time. Just killing yourself throughout. Yeah. And there's some people, I know people that they used to pride themselves on the fact that they could work 4 hours a day. I'm sorry, no, they could sleep 4 hours a day and they would literally work the rest. Yeah. And fortunately, that one guy fell off a roof. Yeah.
Is he not with us anymore?
No, he's with us. He's with us. That's why I said, fortunately.
He's just a lot shorter now.
And he was laid up on the couch and his company fell apart. And it forced him to learn and to grow and to change. Anyway, now he's got a company that's worth he's got one of the largest chimney companies in the world. And now he'll just take off for a week or two to go scuba diving or just whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, the whole blue collar business management renaissance recently has been really encouraging to watch. I think Dirty Jobs probably had a pretty big role to play in that, and the popularization of getting your hands dirty after the internet boom in the late 90s.
Yeah. It's I've also had a very interesting perspective of growing up, of seeing the different paths that people take, because Nate grew up in the same city, same area, which had a pretty darn high immigrant rate from the whole world. And so it was very normal for us to know people from everywhere and run into people that were from any country you could imagine. And what's interesting is I would have a lot of my friends that grew up really not rich, but comfortable. Life was very simple. Life is very easy. Life is very predictable. There was never any question about a house problem or a car problem or having food or nothing. I mean, just pretty much as easy and boring as it can get. They scooted right into college. And now that they're in the working field and they've been struggling, and they're just like, you can't make it anymore. The way that the government works, the way that the economy works, that capitalism works, like it's just designed for people not to make it. And then there's all these people that I know that, are from other countries, and they don't know that you can't make it. And so they just do stuff. They don't know that you're supposed to spend all your money on stuff to impress people. So they just put it into their businesses and to moving themselves forward. And some people just the speed at which they changed everything. There's one guy I knew that he used to unload trucks. He's a Russian guy. And when we always went to the same gym. And there was a time frame where I didn't see him much anymore. And it was because he had started a trucking company. And now, now the dude, he does good. He does good for himself. And he says he's pre-ordered a Tesla truck, semi truck. He's going to test it out. And he told me he's going to give me his review on it when he gets it in.
Oh,
yeah. And literally in just a few year time frame, because he was a part of trucking, he was the unloading guy, but he paid attention. He became friends with the owner of the company. He learned how to do a lot of that stuff, and he broke out on his own. And all the hits, all the insanity, all the, I said, what's the hardest part? He said, dependable people. He says, it's so hard. It is so hard. He's like, I'm paying these guys big bucks to run these deliveries. And he's like that. I've got guys that'll pull over and get blitzed, get so drunk they can't drive the rest of the way home. And just wild type stuff. But in a matter of years, he's done really, really, really well for himself. Same thing with, like I said, a lot of other immigrants in the city that I grew up in. They're all have done really well, and they're very stable, and they're very, very happy with themselves. And so I think that's one of the beauties of blue collar is that it's tough, but you make it. There's nothing, and you just start making something. Where's a problem? How do I solve it? And bringing that solution in. And if it's properly and the market demands it, then you're rolling.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the
I feel you just solved, Nick, the millennial working dilemma in a nutshell.
What do you mean, Phil?
Just how hard it is. Like you were saying, friends from college who are now struggling. Yet there are people who came over here with not much and just worked until they found something, and they took time and effort and patience and learning, and now it's grown into something profitable.
Yeah, it's wild to see the difference, because it's a lot of time the difference is the attitude, which is no one and nothing owes me anything. And especially for them, because they're just like, well, they have running water here, so this is awesome. No one's gonna kill me. I know people that they're only here because they helped the CIA in their country when everyone was killing each other, and the U.S. government was trying to stabilize the nation. This was a small country in the 80s that this happened. And
just a small one, or
Panama. Yeah, Panama. Look it up. Panama got wild.
It's kind of
no, it's small, but it's got a big canal.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it.
Yep, little country, giant canal, and some great,
Like a big
great
hot dog bun.
What?
Geographical hot dog bun.
It is now, yeah. And a really great tax rate in Panama City, which is why the skyscrapers make it look like some like Tokyo or something. Yep.
So how do you mentioned that your friend commented on finding good help is the hardest part. And that's always been one of my frustrations with just about any job that I've worked, was the unreliability of coworkers. Why do you think that is?
Because
does that go back to the entitlement thing and like the lack of people who know that the world doesn't know them anything?
So I think it might be a little bit of entitlement, but mostly what I think it is that America hasn't experienced hard times in a really long time. I mean, the Great Depression was 90 years ago. The obviously World War II around 80 years ago, and then the gas crisis in the 60s, Vietnam War, some of the stuff like that. Like everything is so far in the past right now, and we're in the 2022 right now. Even the 90s, the 80s weren't bad. The 80s started the upkick. And so it's been decades and decades and decades. A lot of people, their whole lifetime. Yeah. 08 was tough. And, but it was kept to a time frame, and there was still a lot of stability across the board, even though the job market was
collapsed.
Yeah. The rest of the country had a lot of stability to it. And then the government also, like, you still had your support system from them. And I think for a lot of people, you can always fall back on credit. You can always fall back on a different job. You can always fall back on moving in with somebody else. You can just do other stuff, not pay stuff, ignore. I've worked with guys that they would just constantly ignore throughout the day. They would ignore all their collections. They sort of memorize the numbers for the collection companies calling them. And I'm like, when we get to talking about it, I'm like, well, what happened? What's going on? Like, everything okay? Like, oh no, well, we forgot. Like, what do you mean? Well, sometimes we just forget we have bills. I'm like, well, this guy works 40 hours a week. That's what he works. He just hangs out at the house. He doesn't do anything. And they're like, yeah. And like, yeah, we're not going to deal with that right now. And so you can get away with, they're not going to show up. They're not going to take stuff from you. And it's just the way that it's designed it's very, very, very forgiving compared to what it was 100 years ago. If you didn't make it, or you mess up, or you get hurt, or something like that. Like Nate, in December, I watched Cinderella Man. And like you told me about the book being a whole lot more intense.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Great Depression, this boxer is trying to survive boxing, and wound up in a lot of debt, a lot of problems, other stuff, because obviously, everything crashed and everything went completely down the tank. And they're at the doctor's, and Nate, you could tell me if I mess this up at all. And didn't he broke his hand, and then it rehealed, and the doctor was going to charge him to break it again, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, well, what is it for just the cast? So they set up another fight so he could break his hand in a fight. Because it's
so the doctor could reset it.
Yeah.
Reset it properly.
Reset it so he could save money. That's how nuts you had to be back in the day, because there was no other option. And so versus like mentality nowadays is, I'm I know a lot of people that they've almost never not had a brand new car. They're our age, still live at a parent's house, or had to move back in for financial reasons. But it's always been a new car, and they can't imagine life any other way.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of wild. That's my perspective anyway.
It's real. There's no denying it's real.
How were you raised differently to think about things? Well, that's not true. Where do you think your like intentionality came from? And then why did you like start to apply that to your trade?
So, well, the intentionality started as a kid because I always hated the idea of going to work and that being my life. Like, oh, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to do this thing and then I'm going to go home. And I was like, okay, I got to do something different because I don't want to be begging for money, but I also don't want to hate everything in myself and my life and whatnot. And so that was my mindset. And then going through the teenage years, I got really lazy because life was really easy. Because once I was old enough to kind of take care of myself a little bit, my parents were just kind of like, all right, you teach yourself life now.
Are you dead? No? Okay, good.
Yeah, like 14, and they still kept they kept the close tabs on me, on my body, had to be at the house all the time, could hardly ever leave, very, very close watchful tabs. But as a person, I had to teach myself everything. And so, but what happened is with life being comfortable, there's not that much being demanded of me. And so I kind of cruised on through as a teenager and then into being 20, into my early 20s. And I was in the exact grind that I never wanted to wind up in as a kid. But I imagined like, what a horrible life. And then I was there. And I was thought, oh no, I'm exactly where I didn't want to be. And this is terrible. And then that's where I was always trying to figure out
reverse gears.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out a way to get out. And unfortunately, and I've taken some different tests to figure this out, but the way my mentality works, or my personality, when stuff gets hard, it's put your nose down and you grind it out until the problem's fixed. The problem is it's never enough. You do it your whole life, it'll never be enough. That's where the thinking component comes in. And so
I was going to say, so where do you stop? So like I just switched from estimating residential jobs to more commercial jobs. And with residential work, I systematized it and I figured out that I could, get stuff done, in half the time. And so I had a lot of downtime. With commercial work, there's always more, so like if you get caught up, there's always more to do. So like how do you, as someone who's used to working hard, how did you start telling yourself to stop and that you can start again tomorrow? Like just good sleep is worth it.
Yeah. So, no, I started doing that. So when I had a job, I started to do that. And if I'm in my work, if I do have the time to go to sleep and it's not urgent, I will. Mostly that's just for my wife though, that kind of built that into me. And she'd be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you have to sleep. You have to, like, this is insane. You can't kill yourself. You have to set some sort of boundaries. And so that's literally that's where it comes from, is from her really being on me about having some level of taking care of
Mental health day. Mental health day.
Yeah,
Oh, those are sweet. Don't joke about those, dude. Those are fucking sweet.
Last time I had a mental health day, I played Last of Us 2 for like 6 hours straight. It was awesome.
Yeah.
right on. Well, I found that like for me, doing something would be, hiking up a mountain, swimming in the ice water, and then hiking back. That's like a break for me. Or building stuff or projects or so in the short term, the day-to-day, yeah, that was kind of built in. Right now, it being cold, when it's really cold for Chimneys, that's our crazy season. And sometimes you're in the office, you work 10-12 hours, and then you're in the office until like 1-2 in the morning. That's how it is sometimes. It's not the rule, but when you got deadlines, you got people counting on you, you got customers counting on you, especially now. I mean, there's a big snowstorm, and a lot of people.
I was just about to ask, yeah, how do you guys manage that?
So, well, a lot of my guys say, they don't really want to. They don't want to deal with the snow. They don't want to deal with the stuff. And our office just gets pummeled by phone calls. But for me, I'm there to make it happen, which is funny because that was already my mindset as a worker. So if you're a worker in life and you think, okay, I'm going to change when I become an owner, I'm going to change when my position changes. Oh
no, it just gets worse.
Whoever you are in the moment, that will not change. That will continue on. It'll take a while to change that. And so I acted like an owner at my dad's company, and he could tell you that right here. Like, he was so sad. He was so sad when I moved. And I'm still the company, like the tech guy, the tech advisor. Everyone in the company calls me when they don't know what to do with stuff. It's still the nature of it. But,
do you guys use the same CRM?
No. I hate all their systems. I hate all their CRMs. I hate all of it. I think it's all trash. It was all terrible. It was all hard. No one ever knew what was happening. And that's why everything I do is very, very different. But that gung-ho attitude. So like today I was supposed to do an estimate for somebody for reinstalling the wood stove because he had a contractor totally redesign everything. So I got there and I looked at the guy and I was like, you want to put this in? It's just me, but let's like talk for a game plan for a minute or two. We'll get your stove hooked up. He had a fire in it before I left the house. So they had gone a couple of days without power. Same thing at the second stop of the day. They got power 30 minutes before I got there, and it's going to snow again tonight. And so I made sure to get their system fixed because it's a gas system. So I was there for like 2 hours trying to get this thing to work again. And then third stop, exact same thing. They couldn't get the gas system to work. They had no power. They haven't had power since like Sunday night, Monday morning. And people calling in and then just trying to do everything I can to make sure that people have access to heat in their house. But that's something in life when something's too late, like it's too late. And that like being prepared is really, really important in all aspects, whether that be trying to figure out like your game plan for if you get injured or if you get sick, or what if you get fired, or what if your car just dies on you. Just really thinking of, okay, how do I handle my life the moment that everything's not going good? That's super important, and that's super rare that people do that, but you can really, really save yourself a lot of time going backwards by just being a little prepared.
How do you
be prepared?
It's like I have this song in the back of my head. The fucking goat from Hoodwinked.
Yeah. I was prepared.
Phil, do you know what we're talking about? Have you ever seen Hoodwinked by Little Red Riding Hood? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
I thought that was just like a veggie tales, like conservative Christian type thing.
No.
No? Okay.
No.
So one of the problems with especially like the blue collar world, as you start getting bigger as a company and you start, having to field more customers. That's one of the things I feel like you did well by moving to Charlottesville, because people who have the money to pay for problems, who are prepared financially, like don't cause as many problems while you're doing the work. Mm-hmm. How do you like help your customers stay ahead of the ball to save yourself more problems? So like, this is your busy season, but are your better customers people that have thought about problems now in, like the summertime? And how do you filter out people that don't?
Yeah. So those are, the people that think ahead of time, they're the best, because they're thinking about stuff, they're communicating with you clearly about what they're wanting to do, when they're wanting to do something, and why. And they're far and few in between, and they're amazing. But so what we have to do is we always have to be super proactive, and we have to do the work, and we have to do the extra. And so for us, it's us communicating with people. There's a little saying that I actually have a chimney coach that runs a very large company, and he works part-time, and he does quite good, which is why he's coaching me. And he has a saying, which is the chimney tells a story. He's like, you don't have to be a salesman. Just look at the chimney and tell them what the chimney's saying. And that's all you have to do. And communicate it clearly. And
Clean
so, what's up?
Clean me. Stick a hose in me.
Oh my!
Please.
Suck all the shit out of me.
Yep.
I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. I'm anthropomorphizing a chimney.
Oh, it happens all the time. I knew someone that he would send a camera, an inspection camera up the chimney, and I only saw this a few times, but he'd look at a female customer, and he'd be like, Amityville Fireplace. He'd be like, "All right, going up the Burke now." He's sending the camera up, and they're like, awkward moments in my life. I'm like, I gotta go check something on the truck.
I've never heard of a character like a chimney sweep in like a porno. It's always a plumber or a pizza guy.
Well, yeah, because they're common.
Chimney sweeps aren't common.
Oh, there you go. That's your next project should be writing porno scripts for chimney sweeps.
Done. I just got to learn about the technology. Oh boy.
Oh man. Yeah. Hey, if it's a service-based company, that's all you need. The guy shows up in the truck and knocks on the door. All the same. Pizza delivery guy, which did you see that SNL pizza delivery guy skit? With JJ
Which
Watts?
one? I'm sure there's like a lot.
Well, that's what JJ Watts, like they constantly get calls, and they ask for like a particular kind of pizza, which is the one that he delivers or something. But basically the girls never have money. So they're like, well, we'll trade you. And basically JJ Watt is always exhausted, and he never brings back money. And he's always just like, oh my gosh, I need to take a nap, because every single house he goes to, they don't pay him, they just sleep with them. It's great. SNL, JJ Watt. It's one of the few skits I actually laughed at with SNL.
Ouch.
They did a great job.
There have been some good ones recently.
Nick's a hard laugh. Nick's a hard. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. No, Either it's funny or it's just strange enough that I find it hilarious. It's one of those things where people are like, "You think this is funny? What's wrong with you?"
What is the silliest question you've gotten on the job? Like just the most, I mean, uneducated, it sounds rude, but like what is just the most like ignorant customer just asking like the most out there question?
Oh my gosh. Just I get wild stuff all the time. I've walked into houses and they're like, "Hey, can you see if there's this is an old house, so can you see if there's a fireplace hidden in here somewhere?" I'm like, "What?" Like, yeah, like they hid it in the wall or something. And like, yeah, we'll see. And that's what they wanted me to do. See if I
And
can
that's
find
why
it.
you were there. Was to
Yeah,
find
I
the
already
hidden
knew.
fireplace.
Not one here. Oh, that's a dead person. That's money.
Yeah. Well, I could look at the top and be like, yeah, no, you have no fireplace here. I can look at the top of your chimney or your chimneys that are sticking out of your roof. You don't have one. But yeah, I've had people ask like, man, I'm trying to think. Just some of the, man, I can't remember the crazy questions right now, other than that one, because that was one that really stuck with me. But people would ask, like today, a guy asked me because they've got fireplace doors, and he's like, "Okay, so if we switch to wood, will those fireplace doors be okay?" I was like, "Yeah, they'll be okay. They're fireplace doors. That's what they do."
Like a
Yeah.
shower curtain. It's like, yes.
The biggest thing is that a lot of people are like, so I'll put the camera up and their chimney will be it'd be like grenaded. All right. There's holes everywhere. There's creosote, which is the black unburned fuel buildup. It's the little fuel that's waiting to catch on fire, and it burns at a couple thousand degrees.
Can you explain real quick like the purpose of a chimney liner and why that's important?
Yeah. So the chimneys actually, we have an idea of how much we're like, okay, we know how much, a lot of heat, but it's hard for us to conceptualize how much heat a chimney takes. And so the liner is specifically designed to handle the highly corrosive environment, the smoke, and all that heat, and keep it contained. And then there's either supposed to be insulation or air pockets so that the heat can't get through, and then the bricks. And then there's supposed to be 2 more inches of air pocket, and then your walls of your house. I've seen it like that in 10 years, maybe 3 times. Almost no chimney is up to code.
So what happens when a liner gets compromised? How do you educate the customer as to why that's like a bad idea or a safety hazard?
Yeah. So, well, we use cameras a lot. And so we run a camera through the whole system, and because it needs to be really tight, just like your car muffler, it's got to be a tight system where nothing can get out. And there'll be cracks, holes. Sometimes there's literally gaps like this big, and it's just empty space, and then a single brick, and then their wall of their house. And you've got, you'll have temperatures of 300 to 500 degrees steady for days on end at that temperature. And then if anything happens, it can jump. It can jump to 1,000. It can jump to 2,000. You have a chimney fire, something, that creosote, that unburned fuel catches on fire, and it's cranking. And what happens is wood, as it gets drier, its ability to spontaneously combust gets more and more likely as it gets drier.
So if there's a leak in your chimney liner, it dries out the 2x4s that your house is likely made of, making it easier for them to burn.
If it's heating the brick on the outside of your chimney now, yeah, and that wood's touching it, it's getting drier and drier and drier every year. And a lot of the time what happens is it's on one of the coldest nights of the years or people lose power and they're like, more burn, more burn. And then they get more burn. When I try to explain that to people like, hey, heat. Okay, heat transfers. Their oven gets up, people's ovens get up to like usually 400, 450. And I'm like, it's hotter than that. Like constantly.
Yeah.
That extreme exposure. And people will be like, I'll explain all this to them. And then they're like, so we can use it though, right?
Like, electricity is good.
Yeah. Electricity fixes global warming. Okay. Versus what? Well, burning carbon fuels. Well, how do you get the electricity? Oh, we're burning carbon fuels to get the electricity?
Not the dinosaurs.
Yeah, like it's like no one checks upstream. Where does stuff come from? Or where does it go? Well, another thing, like people, like I said before, a lot of people, they don't want to burn carbon fuels, which I get, but they don't check on like which kinds. So for instance, there's zero emissions natural gas power plants. And they were going to build a ton more of them, but they're not now because of the decision making wanted to head a different direction.
I was about to ask, is that because Chernobyl happened?
What? No. That's why there's not nuclear power plants everywhere. That's why. That's why everyone's hesitant about nuclear power, because everyone's like, Chernobyl.
Nuclear.
Fucking Russians.
Yeah.
Well, just go to the mountains of West Virginia. You'll see 6-fingered people. You don't need radiation for that.
Speaking of West Virginia, there's a documentary I keep meaning to watch. The Wonderful Whites of West Virginia. Have you guys seen that?
I have heard the name. I have not seen it though.
I need to see it at some point.
The Wonderful Whites of West Virginia. Oh man, that's.
If it's talking about teeth, there's not many.
I've been like in West Virginia a few times, and
Bill's dying over there.
Whoa, they're not making stuff up when people tell stories about West Virginia that are nuts, and people being nuts. And if I remember correct, I think they're the state that drinks the most Mountain Dew.
That doesn't surprise me. Does not surprise me. It's probably a tie between that and Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, probably. It's
Speaking of taking care of yourself, I'm starting to get hungry. So Nick, as we wind down a little bit, again, thanks for educating us a little bit on how fireplaces work.
Yeah.
And how you're,
Like you kept being like, oh Nick, explain the fireplace detail, would you? And Phillips wanted to go.
Well, I know, but the guests don't know. This is for the homeowner, the new homeowners that want to know, why their chimney sweep, their local chimney sweep is important.
Yeah,
it's for posterity.
Yes. Well, yes. Appreciate that.
but also thank you for like the analysis of the intellectual blue collar worker and why there should be more of them. I feel like if more people knew how brainy it could be, they wouldn't be so turned off by it.
They knew all the components of how much there is thinking, there is game plan, there is strategizing, there is technology, there is learning cool stuff. That aspect of it, there is the incredible satisfaction of doing something with your hands and seeing an end result and having pictures of it, and like you can be proud of that for your whole life.
Still have pictures of that chimney that we tore down and rebuilt. It was great.
Right, I know. And you tell your kids.
You can see my work and your work. There's a clear distinction.
But yeah, it can take you different places, and it can also, like I've met quite a few guys that they do really well They have awesome lives, and they're doing stuff that people are desperate for. But they're competent, and they're contractors, and they're certified, and they're insured, and they're squared away with OSHA for safety, and they're doing stuff right. And you can do stuff right and make a lot of money. And that should have been the main focus of this whole conversation, is you can do it in the arena of whether it be service work or contracting or any number of things. And if there's ever a downturn, I'm not worried about anything because I'm a contractor. I can literally just, if someone needs me to do pretty much anything, I can, for the most part, go do it, except for electrical. But I know how to learn.
I was about to say, except for electrical work, I'm in that boat too.
Yeah, but I know how to learn though. And I know electrical contractors. And so that's the thing, is all of a sudden it's like when you get your brain in a pattern of learning and solving problems, all of a sudden, no matter how crazy or problematic the world gets, you're like, no, I'm going to be good because I can adjust. I can retrain whatever I need to be. I can learn and I can make it. And it's just great on the anxiety. You can be confident that you can do it.
Save yourself a lot of anxiety and worrying.
I think that's one of the biggest things is a lot of Americans, they don't know how to do stuff anymore. When their car makes a noise, they don't know what to do. When there's a problem in the house, they don't know what to do. When they get fired from work, they don't know what to do. Everything has to come from someone else helping them solve the problem. When you're in that position, life is terrifying. Like I would be, if I was there mentally, oh my gosh, I would be, I'd struggle to get through every day. Being afraid of like, gosh, someone's going to have to save me. You know, it'd be scary, but you can change that. Anybody can learn and do cool stuff. It doesn't have someone giving them a good job.
I'd like to leave with two takeaways for people. So one is a chimney thing, and then one is like a business or like a mindset thing. What is something people can do to like maintain the health of their chimney if they have one in their home?
Which is so the National Fire Protection Agency, which has been around for a long time, recommends always having the chimney inspected once a year. And it's also good to have chimneys inspected that you don't even use, because if the exterior is falling apart, it's a whole lot easier to fix it when it's a $500 problem than when it's a $15,000 problem that brought mold into your house. And you have to fix both.
Whoa.
Because as it crumbles down, and then the water's all in the walls, and you don't notice stuff until you're too late. But also make sure they're certified. So there's the Chimney Safety Institute of America, CSIA, CSIA.org. You can go there, put your zip code in. You can find out who's certified in your area. There's also CCP, the certified chimney person. Their
uniforms red.
What? No.
The first thing I thought of was communists.
Oh man,
the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah, I didn't think that.
Find CCP in your area. FBI takes down our YouTube video.
They don't give a shit about us. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also the NFI, National Fireplace Institute.
Awesome.
So, yep, that's how you find someone that's legit. And then what was the second question?
I know you mentioned 2 books. Both are fantastic. Extreme Ownership is something that I always recommend to people. It just teaches you how to, like you said, take ownership of your abilities and how to accept responsibility for everything that goes on, like everything that passes through your hands, like you're in part responsible for it. Yep. But how would you encourage someone to like, what's like a square one, like a baseline, like, oh fuck, I forgot. What's a good baseline question to like ask yourself to like challenge your challenge your current mindset? Like, how would you encourage someone to challenge their mindset? Because it's not a native thing. We don't do it, normally.
Things that challenge your mindset.
Like if someone wanted to like start challenging their mindset today, like how would they start?
So if it's in the mindset of like the situation like I was talking about before, of your mindset is just kind of, you go to work and you try to pay bills and put your feet up and you pray nothing in the country goes wrong. And if it is, you just get on social media and blame everybody for causing the country to be bad.
Or one man in particular.
Yes, usually that's what it is. It's one
Bezos.
man. Whoever's
Sure. Definitely Bezos.
On the particular day is the one that gets it. That's always literally how it goes, even though they have very little power compared to Congress, Senate, the full breakdown, all that fun stuff. To change your mindset.
I would say go talk to a chimney sweep and ask him about the business and how to improve yourself. That's what I would do. But maybe you have a different answer.
Yeah. So to change your mindset, because I'm trying to take, if I had 30 minutes, I would just start rolling, but I have more like 30 seconds. So I'm trying to think of an answer that really can speak to, well, for one is,
not necessarily like chimney work, but just like,
no, I'm not talking about chimney work at all, but in a position of life, it's through the you almost have to combine in my mind, like, okay, ask yourself, okay, start going through actually if life was bad, what would I want to know? What would I want to be able to do? What would I want to be prepared for? What if life actually wasn't good or easy? What do I need to actually have squared away in my life? That's what, that's one of the reasons, that things that got me to start learning about finances and money and investing and inflation and all these things, which is, hey, this is an important area. And if I'm going to do okay in life, I need to learn about this subject. And so starting to ask questions like that. Another thing is what actually makes me happy? And figuring out what that actually is. It took me about 10 years asking that question to figure out what it was. What makes me happy is being in a creative zone, a creative mindset.
I mean, we could talk for hours about the creative aspects of business ownership and how, with the E-Myth in particular, talks about how to get creative with stuff.
Yeah, well, for me, it's specific to inventions or modifying things and getting patents on them. And I think I realized that when I was like, okay, actually, I don't think it's normal for people to have a folder of all that stuff built out, of just list of things that you want to build, and they're not crazy. Some of them are incredibly simple. They just need a patent on them, and that's what it literally makes me happy to be in a super creative zone where I'm trying stuff out and see if it works or not. And I'm not there. But this is the path to get me there. So figuring out what actually makes you happy, because if you figure out what makes you happy, if you do it all day, you don't realize you're working.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can
time flies by.
Crush what you're doing because you're having a good time, versus the person that's doing it for the money, or that's doing it because it pays the bills or for whatever. Yeah. Nobody can touch you. So I think those are two good things: is ask those hard questions of, what do you really need to learn? What if things were hard? What if you didn't have enough money to hire anybody to do anything? And start running down the creative learning process, because the brain loves to learn. When you get it out of the consuming and watching TV and just like playing, like just the being turned off all the time. Once it starts learning, it just wants more and more and more. And it's such a happy, healthy state. And all of a sudden YouTube can be a tool for learning cool stuff. And then just expanding on that. And that it could also help you too, because you're doing something physically, but also help you to just the question of what do you actually like and really enjoy doing, and to head that direction.
Well, cool. Thanks
Cool.
again for coming on. This was a lot more informative than I thought it would be. You think you know everything. You think you know a guy. Wow. Sorry, no pun intended, but that's hilarious.
Oh, I thought you did that on purpose, man.
No. You know, like the saying, like you think you know someone, like, and then they get surprise you.
Yeah. Well, I
cool.
appreciate
Phil,
you.
would you like to sign us off with your logo big and bold there?
Yeah, because I don't want anybody to see this shit behind me. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Nick. I've freaking learned more than I thought I would learn about chimneys and small business ownership and respecting the blue collar workers here in America and respecting trades. And people should look more into them because you can have a good life with a trade. But for our listeners out there, stay hungry. Nate, I'm waiting for you, man.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Stay safe, everybody. Don't be a jackass.
You fucked that up. It's stay creative, you dipshit. God damn. Why do I do this with you? Stay hungry, stay creative. That's it. We're out.
Mic drop.